You're good. You're good.
Okay.
All right. So we should be live. I'm going to check our Facebook page. I'm going to post it on the event. I don't know if you can hear that in the background.
I don't.
No, okay, good. All right. Tan upstairs has been blasting music all day. It's kind of a trip.
Yeah, I think the main sound coming from me is from the microphone.
All right, cool. It's nice music. That's good. All righty. Let me get on here onto our events, post it on the event page. Ba-bum. Oops, why is it doing that? No, there we go. Cool. Posted. Sweet. And gonna post to Instagram. Ooh. Sweet. Okay. Let me get this up and loaded. Oh, God, turn the sound off because otherwise then I hear myself and it's like the most disturbing reverb in the whole wide world. And then it's like my voice, but then it goes back into the microphone. It just is this like endless loop of like horribleness. So that happened during Drew's and I was like, no, 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 no. All right. Yay. Okay. Cool. Sweet. Let's do it. Let's get started. We've got folks already chiming in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to ASoP Live, where the coolest photographers hang out during quarantine on a Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I'm Sarah. I'm your moderator slash host slash extremely pale person, apparently, as my webcam keeps reminding me for the night. And I'm here with the wonderful, extremely talented master of all things, Alex Acosta. And Alex is going to be answering my questions, your questions, and everyone's questions for logging in when it comes to, we have it set up for event photography, but I mean, honestly, the way that we've been doing these, like the last ones that Drew and I did, it's basically like just popping in on just us talking. Like we could have gone on for hours, but we're gonna try to keep it as close to event photography as possible. But if you guys even have like just random questions for us and Alex and getting into photography in general, go for it. Absolutely. So yeah, Alex, if you want to do like a quick little introduction for maybe those who haven't taken one of your classes or workshops, if they haven't, basically, if you haven't been to ASoP on a Saturday, then you may not have seen or met Alex. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so as Sarah introduced, my name is Alexander Acosta and my background is photojournalism. I've had the opportunity to shoot for newspapers throughout the Southeast, including the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Palm Beach Post, Tallahassee Democrat. And my work has also been displayed here in Georgia, New York City, and also Florida as well. I've also had the opportunity to teach photography for the past 8 years between Showcase and also the Atlanta School of Photography. And it's my intention as a instructor to be able to pass on the passion of photography and also be able to instill a lifelong appreciation for the arts and creativity in all of my students.
Yeah. Awesome.
Um, yeah, in addition
And
to that, run Soul Food Cypher. Soul Food
yeah,
Cypher is a nonprofit organization that utilizes freestyle rap to transform individuals and communities. So that's what I do on the day to day, and I teach at Showcase, excuse me, at Atlanta School of Photography on Saturdays.
dude, I did that the other day.
I know,
Like
right? It's been like 4 years.
it'll be a decade from now and I'm still going to be like, yeah, teaching over at Showcase. The other day I answered the phone. Showcase. It was like the weirdest thing. And everyone's like, I thought Showcase was closed. And I'm like, they are. I'm sorry. It's a force of habit for so many years. It's essentially very, very similar. We've got all the same people, a couple new people,
Yeah.
um, classes and all that good stuff. So if you're joining in, you haven't taken a class or a workshop with us yet, do it. I don't know what you're doing, but we got a whole bunch of stuff cool coming up. Alex has a photo 3 starting this Saturday online at 3 o'clock. Saturdays at 3. So if you'd like to sleep in, like yours truly, you can join Alex for photo 3 at 3 o'clock starting this Saturday. It's a 4-week class, and I love that class because it kind of just becomes whatever the students want it to be. Like we've had groups of people who are just like, I just want to learn how to do strobe lights. And I was like, yeah, let's do strobe lighting. So I'm excited to see how this is going to be with like photo 3 online and diving into some more like conceptualization kind of stuff. So should be very cool. So if you get a chance, check out the website, sign up, should be fun. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so first things first, questions on my end, things that I have to ask for you, Alex. How did you get started in event photography? What was it that you found as like that being the niche that you wanted to get into for a photography business?
That's a very good question. So I'll start off with some of my earliest inspirations, and that's hip hop culture. As I mentioned, I co-founded and operate a nonprofit that centers around freestyle rap on a day to day. But throughout my entire life, I've been drawn to hip hop culture. When I was about 16, my mother gave me a camera that she had received from my father as an anniversary present, probably about 2 decades before. And it was a Canon AE1 35 millimeter camera. And I mean, it's a classic camera.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with photography. And I'm originally from Atlanta, so my friends and I we would just hop on the subway and just take the train everywhere. And I would photograph graffiti, and that love for graffiti, hence the shirt that I'm wearing still
Yeah,
wears.
yeah.
But Shout out to Mad Clout. But yeah, that love of graffiti eventually led me to b-boy jams or breakdancing battles and competitions. And when I was there, I just loved the energy, and I started taking my camera there, and I started photographing, those events, which eventually led me to college. And when I was in college, I started working for the school newspaper. And while working at the school newspaper, they would assign me events to shoot for, and then that turned into internships, and then that turned into staff positions. So um, I would say, my love for hip hop um, really started off with me pointing my camera and photographing and documenting the events and the places that I saw. One of the things that I teach my students is to photograph things that you love. By photographing things that you love, it's going to um, take you new and exciting places.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's so funny how that happens where it's like, because I got into photography because my grandpa gave me a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so powerful at a young age, handing someone a camera for the first time and then just having that continue on for the rest of their life. It's the coolest thing. It really, really is. Awesome, awesome. We got a question from Jessica. Hey, Jessica. She said, I do event photography and I'm starting to notice that my photos are looking the same. How do you take different pictures for each event? Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I always start off with the usual suspects. And the usual suspects are get your wide shot, your medium shot, and then also get your detail shot. And you can do that with using various lenses. For example, my lens kit, it depends on what I'm shooting, but I have several primes and then I have a zoom. So I have a 20 millimeter lens, I have a 50 millimeter lens, and then I also have a 70 to 200. But I also have a 24 to 70 L series lens that spans the wide to the mid range. But I like to make sure I get my usual suspects first. So I shoot wide, make sure I get the event as a whole. Then I get my medium shots, which are normally around the 50 millimeter perspective. I shoot from that perspective, and then I get my zoom in shots between 70 and 200. And then after that, that's where I get creative. I start to look for opportunities to frame my subjects in between people or in between objects in the foreground. Um, I look for opportunities to also shoot high and low. I always look for Worm's perspective. That's where I can shoot
Oh yeah.
looking up, and then I also look for opportunities to shoot low. One of the things that I teach in my event photography workshops is to arrive early and then to find the highest point uh, in
That's a
in
good
the
one.
in the building. And by arriving early, you can talk to staff, see if they have any ladders, see if you can get access to some of those points, and you'll be surprised as far as some of the vantage points that you can get. But definitely shooting very high and shooting from above, you will get shots that nobody else has. So those are just some suggestions.
Yeah, for sure. The getting there early is the big one, and you
Yeah,
find that make friends a lot better,
yeah,
especially with the staff and the people around you, because you're like they will literally go, "Oh my God, thank you so much for coming early and like talking to me," not like mid-event. Found that's the easiest way to make not friends with someone
yeah,
is like in the middle of the event, and if you're trying to bug someone to be like, "Hey, where's like a place I can stand?" They're just like, "I don't have time." But if you get there early and you can figure it and like scope it out and everything that makes it way, way, way easier to be able to do whatever it is that you need to get done.
mhm,
Yeah, kind of similar with the work that I do, where it's like, okay, I've got my checklists of shots that I want to accomplish, and I know that the client is going to want, or I know that like if it's an event that I'm photographing for just me for fun, ones that like I'm going to want. But then, yeah, it's like you kind of take maybe the first like anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes at the beginning to get those and have those solid foundational shots down and then start to get creative from there. And
yes,
that it's like, okay, now I know the space. I know how people are distanced from each other. I know how far away I need to be able to like get this angle shot. Oh, this person happens to be standing right there for a good chunk of time. So I can probably get a better shot from this one. Sometimes like the more frustrating ones can definitely be if you're stuck in one place. I don't know if you've ever
mhm,
had any events like that where they just kind
mhm,
of are like, this is your spot, don't move, photograph everything from here. And it's like, okay, all right. I guess I'm going to have to get
mhm,
really creative with different moments and captures and lenses and all of that. So if you don't have the usual luxury of like walking around in a space and being able to get different angles and stuff, how do you tackle that to be able to still be able to capture good shots if you're stuck in one little area?
Yeah. Um, so I'm going to back up a little bit. Also, by
Yeah.
arriving early, you can also get shots of like still life. So, for
Oh
example,
yeah.
if the event is being catered, you can take shots of, let's say, if it's a cake or if there's a spread that the caterer, prepared. You want to get that before everybody starts to dig in. So by arriving early, you get some of those shots. You can get creative with those. So you'll definitely have a lot of images to be able to pad if you need to, if you
Yes.
weren't able to get other shots. But definitely get your usual suspects. And if you're stuck in one place, um, I really haven't ran into that issue that often. But I would definitely say try to switch between the lenses. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really where your lens game comes into to play, especially if you can shoot wide, you can shoot medium, and you can shoot long. Um, Trying to think of some other advice if you literally are stuck in one place. The only time that's come across for me is shooting concerts.
Yeah.
And when shooting concerts, a lot of times you'll be in the pit and they'll give you literally the first two songs, and
Yeah.
then some big guys will come and like escort you out
It's the
so that you don't get a
scariest
free
thing.
yeah.
Because you get so into the zone. Like I used to photograph, I'm probably showing my age a little bit here. I used to photograph Warp Tour
Mm,
back in the day. Uh, and uh, yeah, I remember it was the scariest thing because
yeah.
it's like, I'm not a generally like, definitely compared to the bodyguards that are there, I am nothing. I am total pipsqueak. And you get so into it, and especially if it's a band that you really enjoy, and
Yeah.
you're just like in the moment and you're totally vibing with it and you're getting the great shots. And then as soon as you're like, yeah, everything's going great, this hand
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere and is like, time to go. And it's like, no, I'm so sorry. It's the most frustrating and terrifying thing. That's why I stopped doing concert photography, because of that
Yeah.
tiny, tiny window of opportunity where you have to get it right and on point.
Yep.
So if someone's getting into concert photography, what would you recommend as to like how they get started so when they do get those gigs, they can achieve the shots that they actually need to get in that short amount of time?
Yeah. And a lot of it just depends on the lighting. So I'm thinking about
Yeah.
several different scenarios. So one concert that I shot was Marilyn Manson.
Oh,
Uh,
fun.
yeah, this
That's
is
a
down in Florida.
trip.
Yeah, so that was definitely very interesting. I mean, a lot of lights, a lot of character, all of that.
Yeah.
Um, I would say if you can, try to go in and I would suggest go ahead and maybe even putting your camera either on shutter priority or aperture priority, and not
Mhm.
necessarily worry as much about trying to shoot in manual mode. Definitely make sure you
Yeah.
get in there and you set your settings. But then things are going to be switching so quickly that you don't really worry about exposure as much. Just open up on the aperture, because especially if there's like a lot of lights that's flashing, you never really know. And then also set it on continuous burst, so that you're just rapidly
Yes.
firing. You put your finger down and you're taking multiple shots, because you're going to need to have that real estate instead of trying to frame and try to get the focus in every single time. Um, Also, on Canon cameras, AI servo,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of movement on the stage. I would definitely suggest that. And then also putting your autofocus point directly in the middle,
Yeah.
so that you know it's always there, so that you're not using matrix mode and it's trying to find where it thinks you're going. But I think those are just some solid suggestions
Mhm.
right off the bat that will yield you pretty good results.
Yeah, I used to get practice in at like random really small shows that my friends were doing
Yeah.
like around Milwaukee, and it would be the worst lighting with the smelliest people at like the most inconvenient times and in the weirdest places.
Yeah.
And like one venue that we'd constantly go to was like some what was it? It was just like a park. It was like essentially a one of those like pavilions at a park that
Hmm.
people have picnics at, but they would always have shows there. And but it would be at like 9 o'clock at night, and the only lights would be from like the parking lot like 50 yards away. And
Yeah.
so if I did that and could nail those pictures,
Yeah.
you put me in front of a stage and I'm just like, oh yeah, this isn't anything. I photographed a bunch of random dudes in front of like a parking lot.
Yeah,
Because you don't have the option to throw a flash on for a good chunk of the time. It's not even available. It's not even there. So,
right. It's especially if you're shooting
oh yeah.
outside.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If I know that I'm going to be within, let's say, 6 feet of my subjects, there was one trick that I learned where I could actually use the flash and then set my aperture at 22, and then whatever the flash hits will be exposed, but then everything else would come out black. And
Oh, that's legit.
yeah, so I actually did that actually at a lot of punk shows. So I was shooting a lot of like
Yeah.
punk concerts. Um, I was shooting in like a lot of like, ooh, if you ever heard of like Madball or like Sick of It All,
Oh man.
yeah, those are like really aggressive shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, right now I'm looking to see if I have any of those.
Oh,
Um,
that'd be fun.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Can
I'm
I?
sure I can find that. Let me see if I can bring some of those up real quick.
All of my old concert photography is luckily buried because I'm sure there's pictures of me in there looking like a scene girl from MySpace. And those should never resurface in my entire life.
Hey, we've all been there.
Yeah, didn't we, for a little while? Yeah, yeah. So it's like kids today, they're like, oh, it's like they're doing TikTok dances, and I'm just like, oh no, you don't even. They're fine. They're doing good creative things. We were just being horrible dressers.
All right,
Um,
let me see if I can bring this up.
yeah.
So I haven't seen this. This is probably about 10 years old,
Oh,
but
and Jessica's got a good question too. Would you shoot a an event? Would you photograph a church event the same way you'd photograph a concert?
it depends on the church.
I think so. Yeah.
It completely depends on the church. I've shot churches as well. It just really goes into the feel of the environment and the people. You want to be able to capture the energy that they're giving off. So, I mean, if you are going to a church that's more conservative and you're like in rock star mode, your energies may not vibe, you know?
Yeah.
So you really, and this has been my perspective, you know, my focus as a photographer is to be as much of a fly on the wall as possible, and just capture the essence in its original in its original form, not to be too obstructive to what's going on. While I might have a style and while I might shoot a certain way, the main thing is to allow the scene to unfold as it must.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I do have some shots that I shot of a club and a bar. It was a venue,
Yeah, let's do it.
and this is probably about what, maybe about 10 or 12 years ago, but the work still stands out. Um, I did shoot a punk show, so it might be some language on t-shirts that I try to,
I think
okay.
I think this is adults mostly. If there's
Got you,
kids out there, hey, you cool baby,
got
but
you,
not
got you.
good. Yeah.
And again,
So,
I just want to preface that this was what I was shooting. This isn't necessarily any statements that I or the Atlanta School of Photography, you
yes,
know, is promoting.
I
I
might.
just
I don't
documented
know. We don't
what
know
was
that. No.
there.
You don't know me, Alex. No, I don't
No, I'm pretty sure I know you, but this I'm going to share the screen now, and I can share these images.
Yeah, go for it.
All right,
Sweet.
all right. So this is a venue in Tallahassee that hosted a lot of different types of shows, and that's one of the things that drew me to it. So I mean, you had hip hop shows, and you also had punk shows as
Oh,
well.
fun.
This first image I shot of a guy at a punk concert, and this was like a
Yes.
sick of it all punk concert. And again, this is the technique that I use where I just strapped on a flash and I had a wide angle lens. I mean, it was super wide, maybe
Wow.
around. Um, Actually, it was a fisheye, but it was on a crop sensor. So that fisheye was
Oh,
closer to
cool.
probably about maybe a 24 millimeter,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe even 30 millimeter. But when I was going in the club, like I would just snap, like I didn't have to look through the viewfinder. I was just capturing people.
Yeah.
And you'll see, you know, what I was able to capture in the midst of it all. But This guy here, the story was he got in a fight with a man and a dog outside, and then came back inside, was just like, rock on, let's go. But he was
Oh
literally in a
man.
fight outside,
Jeez.
and you could
Oh,
see his knuckles as well.
oh my God. That's insane.
And then the next image is from a Madball concert,
Oh my
and this
God.
is in the midst of uh, a mosh pit. And this guy was just like raging out, but after the show, he was like the nicest guy ever.
Isn't that a trip?
Yes.
Like, yeah, especially like some of the band members, like you see them just completely lose it. And then you talk to them after and they're just kind of like, hey,
Yeah.
cool, nice to meet you. And it's just like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you too.
And there's another one from the stage, and like this is where things just went completely haywire. I
Wow.
mean, there was bottles being thrown. As a matter of fact, this guy landed on the flash. It broke my flash. Um,
Oh no.
but it was
That
it
is
was
totally a risk that you're going to take
yeah, yes,
band
absolutely,
photography. Yeah, yeah. And the other
especially
guy's
at a
band
punk
photography as
concert.
well. Oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah, absolutely. Oh, Arlissa had a good question too. Okay, so she says I was taking some pictures at a concert and found out I needed a permit from the band prior to the concert. Is that a standard? That's interesting. I've
I
yeah,
haven't heard that. I mean, the thing is, it depends on where the
mm,
venue was. Uh,
yeah,
so, for example, some of the larger venues, like we were mentioning a little bit earlier, you have two shots, excuse me, two songs, and then you have to go out.
mhm,
Um, Another thing too is equipment. A lot of times, people might start asking you, especially security, if you have more professional equipment. Whereas the average consumer, for example, I'm sure other people were taking pictures
yeah,
in the crowd, they
yeah,
didn't stop them, but if they feel that you're using those photos for commercial use or you're going to use those for professional use or
yep.
commercial use, then security might ask you. So that's the main thing is, it depends on how big the act is, X, Y, Z. I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure about a permit, but
Had it
I've
the only
never heard
time,
that.
yeah, the only time that I've ever had an issue is with on the complete opposite spectrum of what we're looking at in front of us here is with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah,
They have a really, really specific, and that I feel like that's with larger like symphony orchestra groups.
yeah.
They have unions. So you have to
Mm,
go through the union
mhm,
first
mhm.
before you can photograph them. So anytime I'm working closely in tandem with when photographing or videoing the symphony orchestra, it can either only be a specific allotted amount of time,
Yeah,
or I have to get like specific things that I've signed in terms of like where the pictures will be displayed. Like I can't put any of them on my website. I can't put any of them on social media. The
right,
pictures that I take are for the ASOs, like specifically, and like that's
right,
it. Yeah, yeah. So I'd say like if you need a permit ahead of time, maybe for like, yeah, for those larger um big bands, big venues are the ones that I've only ever had trouble with. Yeah,
right,
yeah. And you
right,
just call ahead of time. Usually there's someone that you can get in contact with and say, "Hey, do I need a permit?" And they'll tell you yes or no right away. Yeah.
right, right. Agreed. Um, so yeah, I've never personally run into that, but again, if they do see that you do have professional grade equipment, they might start asking certain questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree with Sarah 100%, especially if you're trying to photograph high quality images. It probably is the best route to uh, contact the venue, the manager, ahead of time to get those images. These bands were touring, but I had a relationship with the venue and the venue owner, and I was pretty much the venue's photographer
Yeah.
for about a year or so. So that's how I was able to get a lot of these images and didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a big help if you're like the go-to person at that venue and it's just like, oh, that's Alex. We know Alex and he's good. He's fine. If
yeah,
I found that's the only time if I have issues is when they don't know you. If
yeah,
they're just like, who's this guy? Like, then they're like, ooh, and you might want to even um, pull up like sometimes I've had to pull up my phone and go to my website and be like, this is who I am and this is the work that I do. It's
mm-hmm,
kind of weird. Yeah. Especially when you're showing up in kind of random places.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Jessica just asked, what about $1 million policy? Do you mean like a liability insurance and that kind
mm-hmm.
of stuff? I would recommend it
Yeah,
highly, especially doing this kind of work.
yeah, and it's only I mean, for my insurance company, I think it's what, $35 a month or something like that. So I mean, especially if you're going to be
Yeah.
bringing in revenue for it. I know even for some of my retainer contracts, it's actually outlined for me to
Hmm.
have a policy. So you never know when things are going to go wrong, especially if you
Oh my God.
start uh, using strobe lighting and also off-camera lighting. If your light stand falls on somebody, somebody could try to sue you. You know, you
Yep.
never know what people can say. So the more you do it, the more risk you're going to be taking, the more you shoot.
Yep.
You might as well. But I mean, that's only if you're doing it professionally.
Yeah. Yeah. I have Hiscox, Hiscox, and they're great. They're
Okay,
fantastic. And they have
awesome.
a policy specifically built for photographers.
Yep.
Otherwise, check in with your sometimes I've even heard like if you already have like homeowners insurance or renters insurance,
Mm,
that might cover at least things that are like currently in your house.
right.
Otherwise it might have to be something specific, especially as event photographers, we're out in the field.
Yep.
So if you do get a policy, make sure you know if it follows you outside of your house. That's the important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Agree. Great question.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Where's this? Yeah, I want to know more about these. I want to see more of these pictures. This is like a total like flash. I'm getting huge nostalgia vibes myself from these. So this is fun.
Yeah, I think this is what is this? Mad Ball concert. And again, using that flash technique. But then I also saw other events there as well. And this is one without the flash. So I would say definitely be cognitive of different opportunities to shoot.
Oh yeah.
And shoot with the flash, without the flash, look for silhouettes, look for different opportunities that are all around you. This shot was shot during a pajama party. This was like a wild pajama party, as you can imagine. But pretty much people were like half naked, not all the way naked, but like half naked. But it was a very interesting scene. But again, you know,
Like a
by
pajama dance party.
it's a pajama dance party,
That's
pretty much.
awesome. That's awesome.
And by me being there so much and like shooting almost like on a nightly basis, everyone became comfortable. So I would say like the more you can situate yourself like in a scene, especially in music or even events
Oh
in different
yeah.
venues, like the better it is, and people feel much more comfortable. You know.
Yeah,
So
if you can kind of like even for a couple of seconds, like take your face away from the camera and like make eye contact and smile at someone.
yeah,
I can't count how many times that has helped,
yes,
from anywhere from doing stuff like this to photographing kids at the Woodruff Art Center, like little toddlers, to photographing like elderly people at like a banquet hall or something like that.
hmm,
Anytime that you can just put your face down and smile and make eye contact, world of difference. World of
yeah,
difference is how people perceive you as a photographer.
absolutely,
Oh, it's
absolutely,
great with that wide angle. Oh my gosh.
yeah. And the vibes that you give out to the world is the vibes that you will receive.
That's true. That's
It's,
absolutely accurate.
So if you go in there and you're confident, and you present yourself as a confident photographer, then people will see you as that, and they will welcome you to shoot the pictures, and then eventually they'll they'll forget that you're even there, and that's
Yeah.
really where the magic starts to happen, is when you can be able to capture the scene unfold in front of you.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Making sure you also get shots, before and after. This is with the band loading in.
Mm.
Again, this is before anything ever started happening. So therefore, it's like these early shots sometimes could be really, really cool. This is on stage lighting, so I didn't necessarily use the flash on the
Yeah.
stage. So therefore, very little flash.
And how often have you found that the bands let you on stage?
Um,
Is it total mixed bag?
I mean, honestly, I just sometimes find myself on the stage. It
Yeah.
depends on the
It's like
size of the band or the show.
I'm here. I'm here now.
I'm
So
here,
you're gonna love the pictures. Yeah.
and you just don't want to interrupt. I mean, you of
Yeah.
course want to use your best discernment, and
Still be
photograph.
sneaky ninja kind of vibes going
Yeah,
on and weave in and out, but yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Oh man, that's great. And this is also one of those few times where someone gets like a wide, super wide angle. I'm talking about like 10 millimeter lens or something like that,
hmm,
and it works. like
Yes.
so well. Other times where it's like people get a super wide angle and they like it for like the first week and it's like, I guess it's kind of cool. But for concerts, extreme sports, um, it works fantastically.
Yes.
Something about it, something about that look.
Yes. Absolutely. And this again is a wide angle lens here. And I was not holding this to the viewfinder or my eye to the viewfinder. I was holding it up
Just
and
like, yeah.
exactly. And I'm just firing away. Since it's so dark, I can actually have my flash maybe on about 132
Oh,
of its
wow.
power.
Yeah.
So I didn't need that much of a flash burst. So therefore, I can just be snapping away because it's so dark in there.
Hmm.
And plus, I want the background to kind of fall off too.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's very important. I think I put my zoom for the flash on maybe around 70 millimeters, so that it's
Nice.
much more focused in on what I want and what I'm shooting. So um, yeah, those are some techniques. So that was at the Beta Bar, um,
Fun.
and that was that venue. And I'd like to maybe share, unless we have, do you have any more questions right now?
No, keep going. We're good.
Okay, cool,
Yeah, if
cool,
you
cool.
guys have questions, throw them in the chat window there. Go for it.
I'm going to share another project that I did, and this is kind of more along the music, and then I could get into corporate events in
Oh
just a
yeah.
second. So here's another one that I did, kind of following along the same style, but I shot this in black and white. But I wanted to also use grain as an aesthetic.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah.
so this is from a project called Nightlight.
Fun.
And my goal was to actually push the sensor of the camera. At the time, I actually shot this with a Rebel. I shot this with a Canon Rebel.
Nice.
Even
Yes.
though I had access to full frame cameras and more expensive cameras, what I wanted to do was shoot with the Rebel, and I wanted to underexpose so that by the time I bring up my exposure, it's going to produce more grain.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of grain in this.
Nice.
But then
Nice.
I was also shooting with the flash as well. So this is Nightlight, and this was of a hip hop club in East Atlanta in
Fun.
the early 20 or around 2010, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
And that was just like a very important time for the hip hop scene here in Atlanta.
Hmm.
And the club was very seedy, like very, very seedy. Like I saw a lot of stuff go down that I probably shouldn't have seen. But
No, I
again,
know. I lived in East Atlanta in 2011 through 2013.
yeah,
So like this would have been right before I moved to East Atlanta. And it's just one of those amazing, wonderful parts of Atlanta, but you have to be like in the right time of your life
yeah,
to
yeah,
live and experience East Atlanta to its fullest. I
yeah.
don't know if it's the same anymore. I don't know if it's like that anymore.
No, it's
It's
not.
not?
I don't even think Nightlight is. I mean, Nightlight is definitely still not there. I don't even think the building is
No,
still
no,
there.
no, it's not there anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's unfortunate because it
So
was really a trip. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I was using a lot of drag shutter on
Mm,
this, and I wanted to use that for an aesthetic. But there's a certain texture in these
yeah.
images that I really liked, and I was really experimenting with that style. I was highly influenced by a photographer who shot for Magnum. His name slips my mind right now, but highly influenced by his style. And I was kind of emulating, that style, but kind of found my own within that.
Nice. Nice.
So there was a lot of,
Ah, it's great lighting.
yes, a lot of great lighting in there, but a lot of opportunities. I mean, there was gambling, money on tables, and
Yeah.
all kind of very interesting things going on, to say the least.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just paying attention. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to shoot, just finding the subjects and seeing the light. And I think that's very important.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah. Alicia had a question. How do you spice up your work? I'm a beginner and don't want to become stagnant. Yeah. Thinking in the light of not wanting my photos to look the same. So
Yeah,
getting out of that repetition. And I think I ran into that too when I first started.
I have a very, very good recommendation, and it is up to the individual to take this recommendation. But I found that if you do this, it's going to change your photography night and day. And that is get a Pinterest account. By getting a Pinterest account, you start to go in and you start looking at photography that you like, and you start pinning it. The most important thing that you
Oh,
can do
yeah.
is start to get ideas. And by you, it's just like the old adage, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
So if you consume good food, then your body is going to operate. most efficiently. If you consume good photography, you're going to
Hmm.
produce good photography. As I just mentioned, one of my favorite sources of studying photography is Magnum Photos.
Yeah.
That was just the ilk of photography that influenced me, and I just wanted to become a Magnum photographer. At one point in my life.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. That was like the be all end all.
Yes,
When I
exactly,
was a
exactly.
kid, like I was just like, nope, that's it. I want to be either like Nat Geo or Magnum, one of
Yeah,
the two. And
yeah,
then found out they weren't really hiring. And I was
yeah.
like, whoops. Yay.
Yeah, it's hey, you have to cut your teeth. It's a hard industry, and the industry is always changing.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. You make your own opportunities. I'm a big fan of that. But going back to Pinterest, when I was in school, we created these um, these flip books, and in the flip books, we would take tear sheets and paste pictures that we liked. Um, and coming up, like I was highly influenced by graffiti. In the graffiti world, we have something called black books. With black books, we trade our books with other writers, and they go in and they do their styles. They, show you how they do their hand styles, and then you can see other people's styles, and you can start to develop your own. And I mean, it's so much so that, like, for example, you can see where people get their style from, like in the graffiti world. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but there's
I'll go for
certain
it.
like certain places that have certain like variances. So therefore, like I was highly influenced by somebody from Florida. Same thing with photography. Like you can see where people get their style from. My style is highly influenced by Bruce Davidson, who's a Magnum
Yeah.
photographer. A lot of my work is highly influenced by him, especially on the photo documentary side. So if you study good photography, you will do good photography. But in addition to that, you can reverse engineer photos.
Oh
You
yeah.
can say, for example, in this image here, you can ask yourself, was I using a long shutter speed or was I
Hmm.
using a fast shutter speed? By knowing that I was using a longer shutter speed, because you see some of the shutter drag here or some of the lights here,
Hmm.
you can start to ask yourself some of the other questions. Was I using a flash or was I not using a flash? Some of those questions pop up. So I highly recommend downloading Pinterest and just start pinning things that you like and
Yeah.
start studying those.
That's a good thing. I put the Magnum Photos link in the chat there too.
Awesome.
And then my other favorite one right now, I'll put this in the chat too, is womenphotograph.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's all women photographers from all across the world. It is very, very, very cool in their support. Let's see another one. Jessica asks, is it okay to have grain in your pictures?
So that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to separate it into two different categories. If you're shooting for a client, then you probably want to make sure there's as little grain as possible.
Yeah.
If you're shooting it personally and you're choosing to shoot with a certain aesthetic,
Mhm.
then go for it.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting for my clients, I try to shoot as clean as possible, meaning try to reduce the noise, try to reduce as many, creative artistic flares, and my clients probably wouldn't necessarily need a drag shutter. Now, if my client was, let's say, Complex Magazine or Fader Magazine, they
Yeah.
might like that. But if my
Hmm.
client is, a university or, just any other institution, like no, they
Hmm.
wouldn't necessarily want that creative um, of photography.
Yeah.
Now, if people hire me for my style,
Yep.
that's one thing.
Yeah.
But then they hire me to photograph, X, Y, and Z. That's another.
That's why I usually ask a client like ahead of time, like, how did you find out about me?
Yeah,
And if they say, oh, we heard about you from the Woodruff Art Center, I'll be like, okay, then I know they're going to want my work to look like what I've done previously for the Woodruff Art Center.
yeah,
Whereas they said, oh, I found your blog and I like the pictures on your blog. It's like, okay, yeah, then we're going to go with that because that's
yeah,
way different what
yeah.
that look is like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, Kimberly, sometimes I struggle with achieving sharp pictures. Any suggestions? Mentioned she shoots with a Sony.
Okay. So I would say bump up your aperture,
Yeah.
and then bump up your ISO as well. By bumping up your aperture to a higher f number, that will allow for your depth of field um, to be able to fall within the range of your focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest shooting maybe 5.6 and higher instead of shooting 5.6 or lower on the f number. Bump up your ISO. That can definitely help out. And in addition to that, be mindful of your shutter speed. You want to
Yeah.
shoot at least with a shutter speed of 60 or 1/60th of a second. If you're using a 50 millimeter lens. If you're using a longer lens, let's say, for example, a 200 millimeter lens, you need to be shooting at about 250th of a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Just keep higher the lens, the higher, keep racking it up. Yeah. Cause I know for me, if I go into and I'm shooting an event at 2.8, I'm basically gambling a little
Yeah,
bit. Like
yeah,
even for me, having done this for like a minute, I know that like if I'm at 2.8 and I go to focus on someone, by the time that I click that shutter speed down, they might have moved out of that area of focus.
mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just like, hope it turns out okay. But if you know that you can't goof it, then yeah, like 5.68 for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
I
Fingers
know.
crossed. So I'm happy to share some of my corporate work.
Yeah, go for it. Let's do that one. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I'll share the screen.
I know that I feel like we kind of went on a very similar career path where at a point in our lives realized band photography is super fun,
Yeah,
but there's no money in
yeah,
it.
yeah. It'll give you a lot of good shots, and that's one thing when you're younger, or not even necessarily younger, but when you're starting out in photography,
Yeah.
it's good just to photograph things that you love, because that's
Oh
just
yeah.
going to get your door open. You're passionate about the photography, and you
Have
start
fun.
capturing it. Have fun, and those are going to be the images that you remember, and that you're
Hmm.
going to appreciate, the
Hmm.
most. Um,
Yeah.
so this is something I shot probably about 2 months ago. This was shot in February. This is for Black History Month.
Oh, cool.
This was a luncheon over at Georgia State University, and it was actually celebrating the women who broke the color barrier at Georgia State.
Oh, that's cool.
As I mentioned earlier, when you first arrive, and I'm walking you all through pretty much my selections.
Oh, that's a good call.
I don't want to bore you all with showing you the stuff that I didn't
But I
choose.
have realized sometimes that like for whatever reason, some of my students think that like the pictures that they see when I do even like my Lightroom class and they see my flag pictures, they think that like every other picture I've ever taken is like my flag images. So I turn the flag off and I'm just like, nope, this is a good like 10% selection. And then the other 90% is garbage.
Yeah,
So
agreed. So I unflagged excuse me, I changed the filter so that the unflagged images are in there as well. So you can see what some of my editing did. Here is what the image looked like before I
I think
edited.
that's fascinating. Yeah.
This is eventually what it came to.
Hmm.
And I shot this with I think I shot this with the 20, but for some reason, it has a certain cast and certain. Actually, no, I think I did shoot this with the 24 millimeter lens. But yes, you can see I shot wide,
Yeah.
and then I came in. So there's a big difference between this and this. This is eventually what that image came out to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
and I'm happy to show the unedited photos as well. But this is when I first arrived. This is before anybody came into the place. These shots are boring, but sometimes the boring shots to us as photographers are the ones that people appreciate, because
Yes. For sure. Like
because
I,
this
I
is where
can't
the
count how
sponsors
many
are.
times before. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Get sponsors. First couple shots that I did, they were like, "Oh my gosh, did you get a picture of the so and so banner that was up with the Coca-Cola label?" And I was like, "No, that would have been a really boring picture." And they're kind of just like, "Oh, we need that." And it's like,
Yes.
ugh,
Yep.
it's right, they do, because they totally paid for the event.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead and knock those out,
Yeah.
because you want to get those out of the way so that you can just shoot the things that you want to shoot, or not even shoot, but shoot the things that are more desirable in the moment,
Yeah.
and more candid throughout the day. So that's why I went through. I captured, some still life, some images of um, the speakers, their names, shot up with minimums at
Mhm.
the field, just to get some things while people are starting to walk in. Um, I shot the saxophone player. This event was not about the saxophone player, but I went ahead and photographed them just
Yeah.
to show that they hired a saxophone player. It doesn't have to go all out, but it serves its purpose. This These are just warm up shots
Yep.
at this point. Just like sports, you have to stretch, you have to warm up. It's the same thing with photography.
If anything, just to at least get some practice in to see what your white balance and your exposures are doing,
Yes.
just to kind of be like, okay, if I can at least get these strawberries exposed correctly, I can probably get someone that walks in the door
Yes.
exposed correctly. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, usually I ask my clients for a shot list ahead of time,
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
I find out who's important.
Hmm.
And by doing the shot list and getting the people who are important, I can make sure I keep an eye on them. So these are the two speakers, two main speakers. And I made sure that I wanted to get a photograph of them when they first greeted each other, when they first saw each other, because later on in the day, I was going to be photographing them actually on the panel.
Those are the like those are the money moments where it's like if you can
Yes.
get two important people hugging or shaking hands or talking to each other, it was like, yes, did the job. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Um, and then here's another important part of an event. And this one was like a breakfast. So one thing I like to do is I like to photograph, people actually, interacting and grabbing food, but
Mhm.
I never photograph people eating.
Yes. Yeah.
Never photograph people eating. That's a huge thing.
Hmm.
You don't want to be photographed while, you're eating, because as you eat, your face is contorted, and, you know, um,
There
you're not
might be
necessarily.
stuff on your face that you don't know. I would hate for someone to photograph me eating. I'm a messy eater too, so
But the actual, line, that's okay, but stay away from photographing people as they actually eat.
yeah.
So these are some more shots of the cake. These are more overhead. I can crop in. Um, my depth of field allows for you to see
Nice.
everything here. Um, Let me back this up a little bit. Yeah, so more people eating, little moments like that. Um,
Is it
selfies.
is this at the Center for Civil and Human Rights?
It is not. It is actually at Georgia State's
Oh, it's at
law
Georgia
school.
State. I'm sorry, you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very similar walls to the basement of the Center for Civil and Human Rights.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these two ladies,
Oh,
um, so for one, I find characters, and I learned that she was like a big character in the
yes.
place, big personalities. So I stayed around her. I mean, she knew everybody, everyone was hugging her. Um, but so then I asked her about her story, and she actually had this picture, and the picture is of her mother. Her mother was one of three ladies to break the color barrier for Georgia State,
Wow.
and they were honoring her mother for this panel and for this breakfast. And this
Oh,
is her
that's so
sister. And I asked to
cool.
photograph them holding the framed picture. And I wanted to have a neutral background so that it wouldn't be distracting. Everything else that was going on around them was like very busy. So I put them on this wall. And as I was shooting them, this was the first shot. It was okay.
Oh, yeah.
And this is them. But then
Mhm.
they had this special moment between them.
That's it. That's
And
exactly it. Yeah.
that's the photo. So
Hmm.
keep shooting. Don't worry about the shooting just once. Sit there and just be mindful. And then,
Hmm.
just wait for the magic to happen. And that was the magic that ended up happening.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's like sometimes for me as an event photographer, my favorite is kind of being like in the background. Like if I had a superpower, it would be invisibility. So I
Yeah.
could just be the sneaky person kind of getting in and out and taking pictures. But having these moments occasionally where you ask people and
Mm-hmm.
you like try even direct them a little bit, like you can get some really cool stuff that way. And sometimes it can be kind of awkward, but
Yeah.
you get some of the best shots just by very quickly saying, hey, can I take your picture? And
Mm-hmm.
can you pose like this? I've noticed
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a big difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing too is, and I talk about this in the workshop, the event workshop, is balancing between candid and also posed shots.
Yeah.
And you got to get both, honestly. If you're
Yeah.
shooting an event, and especially if you have a client, I would love just to shoot all candids,
Same.
but getting those pose shots as well, where you can just have to see this, everything that's going on. There's
Yeah.
no, there's no intellectualizing it or anything. You see two women and in the photo, and you understand that they're trying to honor whoever's in this painting or
Hmm.
in this photograph, this frame, and it's just all there, and it's just packaged in a way that's
Yeah.
easy for people to digest. So get those pose shots. It's pretty much placing people at times, events, and places.
And
Yeah.
I've noticed, like, from a marketing standpoint, if this is your business and you're getting into that, people prefer to have the pose shots as like their Facebook profile picture. And if they make like a important person makes your picture their Facebook profile picture and your little logo watermark is at the bottom of it, people are going to go, oh, I should probably go talk and hire them for my next event. And it's like, yes, please do that. Love it.
Mm-hmm. So this is the book that honored the
Oh,
ladies who
cool.
broke the color barrier. Um, Make sure to get some of those. This is a student speaker getting the panel shots. This is actually their mother.
Oh, shut up. She's there. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, she's there. She is there. I just love the fact that the photography is getting Sarah hyped. That's
I
exactly what
love
I want.
that.
It's telling the
Oh my
story.
God. How old is she?
She's definitely in her 80s or 90s,
Wow.
probably in her 90s. But she was moved to tears. I was able to
Oh,
grab this shot. And this is really where I started to kick in. Like the shots that I shot earlier were me warming up, but once the event happened, I had already warmed up, and I
yeah.
was just open to capturing these shots and just capturing her. This is another lady whose
Yeah.
mother was being honored. This is one of the deans of the schools at Georgia State.
Hmm.
I'm catching these shots as well. People interacting, photographing
Yeah.
the event. Those are also some shots. Be sure that as you're shooting an event, look into the crowd. A lot of times, the crowd will give you some great shots.
Yes. Yes. Some of my favorite shots that I've ever gotten are people watching the speakers for
Mhm,
sure. Yeah.
mhm. This image here is all about positioning. So I knew they were about to honor her and they were going to gift her with something. So I made sure, and I'm shooting with two cameras, by the way. I'm shooting two full frame cameras. I'm shooting with the Canon 5D Mark II, and I'm shooting with
Nice.
a Canon 6D.
Hmm.
And on one of them, I have a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. On the other, I have a 24 to 70 millimeter lens.
I have the same
So
setup. That's awesome. Yeah.
yes, yeah, I mean, I love it. And I'm old school. I mean, I invested early on into the Canon full frame, so I still shoot
Hmm.
with it. I like the weight of it,
Yeah.
but I can shoot within the camera.
Yeah.
Give me mirrorless, I would love to shoot with it, but because I started, X amount of years ago, that's what I invested in, and that's what I know, and I
Yeah.
know it like the back of my hand. I can almost shoot blind.
For sure. Yeah.
So that being said, this was all about positioning. So I knew they were going to bring her
Hmm.
around. So I had the 24 to 70, and I was ready to go.
That's
Um,
great.
as soon as they stepped out, and she was just so honored and surprised.
That's so
You
cool.
can see it in her face.
Oh man, that's great.
So I'm blasting away at this point.
Yeah, I can
Pictures
imagine.
are
That's what I
flowing.
thought. Like in the back of my brain, I'm just like, you're just like, brrr, like go, 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 go.
Yep. And by doing that, you can capture these moments. Um,
Oh.
and just being mindful, being in sync, seeing everything that's around you.
Hmm.
Um, and again, they have a lot of personality between both of
Yeah.
them. So I kept my eye on them, but definitely had these great moments. Um, Also looking at the other people that are around as well.
Mm.
It was very emotional,
Yeah.
and these are the kind of shots that you want. So on the panel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask. So in those events where you find that people are a little bit more emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and because like there'd be other events where you can get up really close to people with a wide angle lens and all of that. How do you take an approach maybe a more sensitive
Mm-hmm.
event than like a something that's bigger, happy, kind of crazy sort of?
Yeah, I got you. So one thing I've learned, I think sometimes it takes time. It depends on your personality too. So I've been shooting for 20 years. I mean, I can't believe that. To
I
say
know.
that I've been shooting for 20 years, but I've been shooting professionally for about 15 years, I would say.
Hmm.
And by shooting professionally for 15 years, I've come across all different kind of events. But one thing that I will say that it's important to be able just to lean in
Yeah.
and know that you got it, and don't second guess yourself. And by you know second guessing yourself, that's going to take away from the shot. And I know that's easier said than done, but the more you do it, the more you lean into it,
Hmm.
and know that you're there for a reason. That you're there um, to capture an important time.
Yeah.
That is your job. Like if you see it as your job, then therefore you give yourself license to
Hmm.
be there. Whereas if you say, "Oh, I'm not good enough," or this is an emotional time, maybe they don't want me to shoot or X, Y, Z. But if it's like your job, people expect that. Now, I will say this: I did photograph one time. I was working for the Tallahassee Democrat.
Hmm.
They sent me on an assignment, and essentially a woman was missing. And
Whoa.
yeah, it was a heavy assignment, a heavy assignment. And
Jeez.
they were like, I don't know if it was like one of those situations where it was just like serial kidnappings or what was going on, but all I know was at this place where they were looking for the woman, they sent me in the woods I'm in the woods photographing the search for this woman, and her son appears. And
Oh
yes,
man.
it was heavy. It was heavy. But before I even had the camera, before I started taking pictures, I want to introduce myself, and I
That's a good call.
said my best wishes, for the search, and I bonded with him on an emotional, like,
That's good.
human to human basis before I took out the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some shots. I said, if any point you need me to start taking pictures, I will. And at that point, after
Yep.
some time, he actually asked me to stop, and I was like, no problem. And I think
Got it.
with that, he knew that I was there on my job, but then when he saw that I respected him as a human,
Yeah.
um, and I stopped, and that made him even feel better that people
Mm-hmm.
cared about
Yeah.
him. So I would say use your best judgment and your best discernment. But I'll never forget that assignment. That was a hard assignment to cover.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's always that humanity that comes first. Of course, I haven't had anything that is that serious, but a lot of the times if I'm photographing the kids events at the Woodruff Art Center, sometimes parents will come up to me and say, I don't want my kid photographed. Can you not photograph my kid? And I'll like turn the camera to them and show them that I've deleted the pictures. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, absolutely. Totally. No, that's your kid. That's your child. I completely and totally understand. And then they're just like fine for the rest of the day. And I think other parents and other people also see that are around, and they see
Mm-hmm.
that you're having that interaction with someone. And then that not just like has the credibility between those two people, but the people around you as
Mm-hmm.
well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. Too cool. I know that we have to let you go soon, Alex. I'm so sorry.
Okay. No,
But
no worries.
but if you got any more time to show us a couple more, that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
sure. I want to talk a little bit more about the wide angle shots, the medium shots, and
Yeah.
then also the long shots. So this is considered a wide angle shot. Let me see if I can reduce this even more. Yeah, those are like my direct selects. Okay, so you want to make sure that let me go back to that photograph. Forgive
Yeah.
me. You want to make sure that you can photograph the entire scene so that people can see that there was actually a crowd there
Hmm.
and that people were paying attention. So I shot several of those shots, but then also had long shots. These are with 70 and 200 millimeter lens. This is showing that people are engaged, people are listening, and that the content was engaging.
Yeah.
This is also like another long shot of panelists. Um, let's see. Another thing too, when it comes to shooting people at podiums, there's only so many shots that you can get. So
Yeah.
I like to work the room, but you never want to overshoot. So I make sure to get shots from the left side of her, and then I switched over to shooting from the right side. I got as many shots as I could from the right side, and then I got a shot from the middle. I know there was a question a little bit earlier about getting some creative shots. You want
That's
to
a
make
good
sure
one.
you get the shots first that people can use, and a lot of times these are the shots that might be used for my client. I know what they want, but then if I want to add a little bit more creativity to it, I might use the crowd as a design element, especially when we're talking about leading lines. The crowd
Mhm.
is now leading lines into our subject,
That's
and
great.
we're utilizing the rule of thirds as well in this one.
Absolutely.
Again, I knew that she was one of my main speakers and one of the main people I needed to focus on. So I made sure to photograph her and take a lot of shots of her and take varying shots of her.
Hmm. Oh, that's great.
She was a big personality as well.
Oh, that's perfect.
So yeah, and then these are some more crowd shots and make sure they get even more people in
And
there
up
as well.
high.
Exactly, and up high.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is coverage of a corporate event. Shot this for a client at Georgia State. And these are just some images from that. So if
Yeah.
there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that anyone else has.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, throw them in there. Go for it. I know a lot of people, Alicia said, you've definitely shared some wonderful nuggets,
Hey,
some little knowledge nuggets. And Kimberly says great shots, which they are. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
thank you.
Um, I think the one thing that we've been ending on with everyone is during our super amazingly fun times in quarantine, do you have any exercises that you think would be really good for folks to do while at home?
Hmm.
Whether it's with their
So
camera or editing or anything like that. Yeah.
yeah, so I've been teaching a DIY home lighting course.
Yeah.
Um, Studying light is very important. Seeing how light changes in your home, even just on a day-to-day basis. So the sun rises in the east and settles in the west. Just looking at a particular window and seeing how the light changes throughout the day
Hmm.
can just show you like how light is influenced by um, shadows, how different things cast different shadows, how the white balance might change. The white balance in the morning is going to be different than in the evening, the afternoon. Like really studying light, and I know that might come off a little like obscure, but the more you get into photography, the more you realize its definition, and that is to write with light. And the more you can see the light and you study the light, you'll start to be more instant with your photography. I remember when I first started um, shooting for newspapers, and I was interning at a newspaper, and I was following a photographer. His name was Mike Ewan. And I remember I started asking him, I was like, man, what settings do you use? Like, do you use the light meter? Do you use,
Yeah.
manual mode? I'm just asking all these questions. I was like, what, 20 at the time? And he was like, you know what, man? I don't even have to use a light meter anymore. I just pick up the camera and start shooting. And I was like, yo, like, I thought he was like a Jedi. I was like, yo,
Yes.
like,
When you hear
I
that a
was,
photographer does that for the first time, you're just like, how? But like where we are now, it's just like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like another appendage at this point.
yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And that comes from studying light. Like I can walk into a scene and I just know, what my shutter speed is going to be. I know that I want to have X amount for my aperture. And I
Hmm.
just instinctively know that, if I'm going to be shooting inside low light, I need to have at least ISO 1600 or 3200. Boom, there's my settings right there. It's
Yeah.
just like, you just know the more that you shoot, and then also seeing the light, seeing the white balance, you can set all those settings. So I would say studying light is probably one of the biggest things. But also another thing too is going back and looking at old photos and editing. Like
Oh
this is a
yeah.
time to like learn how to edit. If you haven't learned how to shoot with Photoshop, or excuse me, how to edit with Photoshop or Lightroom, I highly recommend some of our online courses
Hmm.
to do so. This is the time to get your editing right and practice, practice, practice,
Yeah.
because that can make your photography a whole lot better. You all have gems. You all saw the first shots that I shared. Those did not look like the images that I eventually turned into my client. But while shooting, I knew what I could do, and I would say definitely learn at the very least how to edit in Lightroom.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, too cool. Awesome. Thank you, Alex, so
Yeah,
much
my
for
pleasure.
hanging out tonight. Appreciate it. And
Yes.
everyone in the chat is saying thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. And everyone stay safe, stay sane, keep taking pictures, keep being awesome, and we'll see y'all soon, I'm sure. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.